Yeah. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the SCMP Live Chat Q&A. And we got some heavy hitters. Everybody's a heavy hitter that comes on here. I love chatting with everybody. And there's a reason why they come back is because I enjoy their conversation and they have great thoughts. And we flow very well with each other. So, man, before we got on, wait. Sorry about that. Did you guys hear
Technical
that?
difficulties. No.
Yeah.
I heard you.
Okay. All right. I had something on and it like repeated what I said. It was weird, man, hearing yourself back. Anyways, yeah, before we got on there, we're talking about Kanye West, man. He's having a listening party and it's supposed to change the world, you know, just like how I don't even know, man. Like I don't even like to me, Martin says John explode. Yeah. Do you guys know what this is? John explode. Like someone said that I exploded on this show one time about a certain topic, and then when we rewatched it again, I didn't explode. You know what I mean? Like it was just me, just it was about the Bellator rankings. Someone was.
I don't
Bellator
see
rankings.
you being an explode guy.
No, but
I see you being a like mildly aggravated guy.
Yeah, I get aggravated and I'm pretty chill until like it goes too far, and then of course then I explode. You know what I mean?
It
like
explodes.
some Pornhub type stuff, right? Anyways, let's get to some of these comments. Tim, good evening, Tim. He is a USC PhD of biokinesology. Wow, that's incredible. And Hayden, of course, shout out to Hayden. She's always on here. Synchro Wing, hello, Synchro Wing. Who's this? Alvin. Oh, Alvin. Good evening, sir. Alvin's always on the chat. He says, good evening to all of us, Mr. Galloway and Mr. Kyte. So, anyways, yeah. So I remember Kanye West. When I first listened to Kanye West, I remember him in like the late 90s. That's how long Kanye West has been around, right? Like, do you guys remember him in the late 90s? Like, I remember him coming out and with his backpack and all of that, right? Pink polo shirts, you know, all of, and I really dug him, man. I thought he was incredible, and his music always has been pretty good. You know what I mean? Like really good. It was something different at that time, and even now it gets unusual at times. But what I guess Ryan can tell us best, man. Like, what can we expect from this album with Kanye West, man?
Hopefully we can expect him to go back to like his more like trap rap inspired like rapping stuff, because obviously his last record, Jesus the King, was like a gospel record, and it was good for what it was, but the core Kanye fans probably weren't happy with it, myself included. So I'm hoping a return to like, I don't know, it'd be too much to ask for a return to like I don't know, my Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. That would be a good one. Or even older than that could be cool. But I expect it's going to be more like, what's the one, the EP he did? It was the Yay EP or whatever, just before Jesus is King. I expect it to be more like that. But hopefully it's better.
Now, Spencer, what is your favorite Kanye West track or even album? Because he's had so many good ones.
Album, I'm an early Kanye guy in terms of albums. I will still play Dropout. I will still play Late Registration. Everything up through Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is terrific. And then it starts getting a little like, all right, you're trying things. And I appreciate him trying things. But then it got to be he's just trying things. And you miss the old Kanye. In terms of songs, though, I mean, some of the there's great songs, but there's just great verses on stuff that I remember. Even more than anything else, like he jumped on a remix with Ghostface and Neo for Back Like That, and it's phenomenal. He did the Us Chasers song with Pharrell and Lupe. That is just amazing to me, and you can't find it anywhere. So it's one of those, like, when you find it, you bookmark it and you hang on to it. But I'm in the same camp as Ryan. Like, let's go back to some of the early Kanye, some of the older Kanye, and get back to those roots and remind everybody why we were so pumped and why we were so interested and so invested out of the gate, because he was amazing.
Now, you know, people are probably wondering that are watching right now, Why
Why
are
are
we
these
talking
guys
about Kanye?
talking
Yeah,
about Kanye?
Kanye. We're supposed to be like this combat sports live chat, and we are. And the reason why we talk about Kanye is because he has new music coming out. We're all fans of him, and he is connected to the MMA world somehow, some way through Donald Trump. And Donald Trump was at UFC 265, and he is in love with Dana White, and Dana White is the president of the UFC, and then Kanye did that track with Buckley and his incredible knockout. So it's all twisted together. One dark twisted fantasy, so to
Oh,
say.
there you go.
Right, so it brings it all around. It's full circle. Now everybody that's watching, if you guys got questions, comments, anything, just put them in the chat. And yeah, so D Brown, I love D Brown. You remember D Brown dunk contest? If you remember basketball,
pump up the
yeah,
pumps.
exactly, pump up the pumps. D Brown, shout out to D Brown. What's going on, man? And yeah, so let's kick it off today with the recap of last weekend, right? Last weekend we had the event. If you compare last weekend's like lineup compared to like if you stack last weekend's lineup against this weekend's lineup is tremendous, right? But we're not talking about that yet. We're talking about last weekend's lineup and the fights last weekend. Spencer, let's start with you. It's not even Makhachev, dude. It's Makhachev. I didn't even know that. Everybody's saying it differently, but I heard it's Makhachev.
Yeah.
What did you think of his performance and the level of competition? And what do you think of him being ranked number 5 now after beating Thiago Moises?
I thought it was dominant, and I jumped out and tried to do my best King Josiah impersonation with a little meme, with a little reaction gif when people started going wild about the rankings, right? They see most of the time everybody's like, the rankings are stupid. They don't really matter. Who cares? And then their guy gets dropped 1 or 2 spots, or a guy that they don't like goes up 1 or 2 spots, and everybody's wilding. And so to me, I think you can justify him being number 5. It's an 8-fight winning streak. It's back-to-back finishes over ranked opponents. He hasn't lost a fight in 5 years. And look, as much as I love Dan Hooker, he's coming off 2 losses. Yes, they are 2 talented fighters, tremendous fighters. But a guy that's got 8 straight wins and a guy that's 3-3 in his last 6, I can see how you make the case. People that want to sit and argue it on merit and this is how it should and shouldn't be, it's a fool's errand to me because there's no system and logic to it. But it was a dominant performance against a very good fighter who nobody had finished up until that point, who didn't look like a very good fighter on that night, because that's how good Islam Makhachev is. And I think we're starting to see it. Like, we've heard all this time from all the AKA guys that this is the next guy. Islam's the next guy. He's got that Khabib to him. He's coming. And we just keep seeing it in little bits. And every time I see him, I think there's still more. That's the scary part to me, is that I think there's still more. And so we'll keep seeing it. He's going to get a guy that's, in that, probably in the top 5, maybe a step behind him, like RDA. And we're going to see it. So if you're salty about it, he's going to get the test. He's going to have to pass that test that you want him to pass. And I think he will.
Ryan, when you look at the last 2 performances, we're not even looking at his whole resume in the UFC. You look at his last 2 performances, Drew Dober, Thiago Moises, both guys that were ranked. They were impressive performances, I thought, man. Like, I don't want to, say that he's overhyped, because he went in there and beat 2 ranked guys in dominant fashion and finished them, man. You got to give him credit for that, right? At least.
Yeah, no, I was a big Drew Dober stan. So going into that fight, I thought, he can get him. He's got a puncher's chance. He's going to land something big. Didn't happen. Islam just dominated him like he did most of the time to Thiago on the weekend. Like in every position of that fight, he was better than Moises in that fight. Like he outworked him on the feet. He outworked him on the ground, ended up submitting him. So look, I think his place in the top 5 is fair enough. I think it's good. And if I had to predict what they're trying to do here, I almost think that he'll be the co-main event on the pay-per-view for the title fight against someone else in the top 5. Because let's face it, they want him to fight for a title. This is what they're trying to build him. He's their next guy. Makes sense. He looks like he's the guy. He's on what, a 6-fight win streak, 8-fight win streak. Look, I rate those 2 wins, and I think he could definitely cause some problems for a lot of those top 5 guys. So,
yeah. So with the top 5, right? Let me put up the rankings here, so we could like see who's in the top 5 for the people that are watching. Here we go. Let's move it. Okay, so the top 5 right here. You got Dustin at number 1, Justin at number 2, Beneil 3, Chandler 4, Islam 5. So the top 5. So if you look at it like that, Ryan, who do you put him against for that number 1 contender fight, a co-main event? And also, do you make that co-main event a 5-rounder?
I don't think you make it a 5-round. I think it's 3 rounds, and it differs if I tell you who I want them to put him with and who he'll get. I guarantee he gets Beneil Dariush. It'll be the co-main event, 3 rounds, and if he wins it, he'll get a title shot. Unless, here's the span in the works, Chandler and Gaethje fight in the meantime, and Gaethje wins that, he'll get the title shot next. But if Chandler beats Gaethje, it's going to be clear for the winner of Dariush and Makhachev, in my opinion.
Spencer, when you look at that top 5, who do you think would be the best stylistic matchup for Islam to propel him into that title shot?
I think the person he can probably dominate the most, to have like the most impressive performance, is probably Beneil Dariush. He's another grappler. His striking is a little wild, a little loose. Yeah, he's had some knockouts, he's had some finishes, but he gets a little wild with it. And he's another super credentialed grappler, right? Like, he was a world champion before transitioning into MMA. So it becomes another one of those guys where you go, well, this is a guy that's supposed to compete with, or should be able to compete with, Islam on the ground. And he goes out and smashes him and mauls him just like he did Thiago Moises last weekend. And so I think that's the fight that gives him the greatest opportunity to really shine. The one I want to see is Michael Chandler. Like, I want to see Beneil get an opportunity against a guy like Justin Gaethje. I don't want to see him kind of stopped before he gets to his title opportunity, because he's looked great. But I think that's what ends up happening is kind of like what Ryan said of Gaethje and Chandler. They've been jawing at each other. I know Justin chimed in from vacation today or yesterday saying, like, this guy's got my name in his mouth. He needs to just lay off. I signed a contract before and he wanted more time off. They're going to fight. That's what it looks like. I think Beneil ends up getting Islam smash, and then we see kind of what the timelines are in terms of who gets the next title shot.
I understand what the UFC is trying to do, right? And this is what we're trying to predict. But in my eyes, in my opinion, I don't think Islam Makhachev should fight Beneil Dariush. I think Beneil Dariush deserves someone higher up than Islam. I think Islam should be rebooked against RDA. I think RDA is stylistically, it's a good challenge to set him up for that next big fight against one of the top 5 guys. I don't know, man. I don't like this thing where they're trying to push him into that position. I understand why, because they thought Khamzat Chimaev was going to be the guy that comes in and takes over, but that doesn't seem like it's working out for him. So they need to have Islam come in, and Islam has that Khabib rub, right? Everywhere Islam is, Khabib is there, and Khabib is there to hype him. Khabib is the ultimate hype man, like the best hype man you can ever have. No rapper in the history of hip hop has had a hype man like Khabib would be for Islam, right? It's like Busta Rhymes and Spliff Star, if you know what I'm talking about, right?
Islam's got a great hype crew, though. He's got Khabib, he's got Daniel Cormier on his show with Ryan Clark this week, just going in on RC when RC's saying it wasn't entertaining and it wasn't it was dominant, but it wasn't anything that I was really all that excited about. And DC's just blowing him up. So between those two, he's covered. He's, as you said, he's got Flavor Flav twice over.
Exactly. Flavor Flav in the flesh, right there as the Dagestani Flavor Flav.
Dagestani Flavor Flav.
That's what we're gonna call him from now on. But yeah, it's Islam. He has everything. He has everything working in his favor, right? Which I wish some fighters that don't have it, I wish they would have it. Because if they did have it, they would be fighting for the title also, man. There's a lot of guys out there that have been extremely skilled, but they didn't have that hype crew of Daniel Cormier on ESPN with his own TV show hyping
Right.
you up. And, Habib, a former champion, probably one of the greatest of all time, in your corner, and AKA the gym, supporting you and everything. So it is what it is, man. Islam has it. He's winning fights, but I feel like he's still 2 fights away from the title. A lot of people think he's 1 fight, and probably the UFC believes so too, because they want to put somebody in the throne that can like spread the wings of the UFC, especially in Europe and Russia. And I've been hearing from some birds in the wind that the UFC is looking to put on a show in Russia this year, at least. If not this year, early next year, if they can. Because, the UFC is looking at every country, right? Because it's so limited the places they can go, to where like any country that's going to open their doors and allow the UFC to put on a show, they're going to go there. We might even have a show in, Afghanistan, if Afghanistan is going to open their doors and have enough security for the fighters, right? Who knows, right? It's just Russia is probably a spot where they want to go. And imagine if Islam fights for the title in Russia, right? That would be insane, right? Something that Habib never got a chance to do, and Islam would be there, right? And doing it, right? He could take that next step. I could see that happening. Another aspect of last week's show that was very interesting was Miesha Tate, man. Miesha Tate comes back and shows you that you can come back and win fights and finish fights and look really good. She doesn't seem like she missed a step at all. Her style is still the same, though. Did you see anything different, Spencer, in her style? I don't think we did. I think we just saw the same Miesha Tate against a weathered veteran, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think the style is still the same, but I think that style is still good enough to compete. I mean, even in 5 years away, a lot of that division is fairly similar from when she walked away. The woman who beat her for the title is still sitting on the throne. Holly Holm, who she beat for the title, is still number 2. Raquel Pennington is still ranked. There's Sarah McMahon is still ranked. Her good friend Juliana Pena is still ranked and fighting for the title next month. So it hasn't changed, but she's able to seamlessly just kind of transition back in, as we saw last weekend. And I know exactly what you're saying about Marion Renault. She's 44. She's retiring. She's on a losing streak. But she had been sort of in there with good competition throughout. She was that kind of measuring stick. And for Miesha to go out there and look as good as she did and as dominant as she did after 5 years away tells me you just put her right back in the thick of the chase. You get her another fight that's someone further up the rankings. I think she came in at number 8 this week. And so somebody a little further up for her. And then you see what happens. I know Holly Holm said she'd like to run it back. Miesha's game with that. I mean, you see what happens with Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, which is most likely going to be Amanda Nunes crushing Juliana Pena. And then you figure out what comes next, because I wouldn't be mad at Miesha Tate fighting the winner of this weekend's co-main event to determine the next number 1 contender.
Yeah. Speaking of setting up fights, right? Miesha Tate beats Marion Renault, and then she's ranked number 8. It just pretty much shits on the whole division right there, right? Shits on the whole top 15. How she just enters the rankings like that after such a long layoff. What's going to happen if Nick Diaz go in there and beats Robbie Lawler? He's going to be the number 1 contender at welterweight. We don't know. That could be a possibility, right? So Ryan, Miesha Tate, who do you put her against? Looks like the UFC is trying to push her, and Spencer talks about Holly Holm. I like that. I like it a lot, actually.
Yeah, look, I agree with pushing her. She was a former champion. She didn't look bad in her return. I wasn't like impressed by her return, but she looked good. She didn't look bad at all. You could throw in there Holly Holm rematch. That'll make a lot of sense, and we'd be able to see where she's at. If she gets past Holly Holm again, then look, she's right on the door of a title shot. Another one you could do is Jermaine Durandamy. That'll make a bit of sense because she's sitting around the top there, probably not doing anything at the moment either. Needs another win if she wants a rematch at the title. So that might be a good one there. And also Irene Aldana. Maybe that's a good fight also. So those 3 names make sense to me. What do you think?
Yeah, those do make sense. Like Miesha coming in at number 8, it kind of, if you're Pani Kianzad, like you've been
Right.
grinding your way up into the rankings for years now and winning fights, and then this Miesha Tate comes in and just leapfrogs you. I'd be in my feelings a little bit, right? You know, Lena Landsberg.
I mean, Lena
Macy.
Landsberg's pregnant, right? Like she's
Yeah.
about to have a baby. She
I
hasn't
forgot about
fought in
that.
like a year and a half. But Pannie Kianzad for sure goes out, wins 3 or 4 straight fights.
Yeah.
But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the where's Islam ranked and everybody getting in their feelings about that. It shows you that these things are just arbitrary. Like people saw that name, people on the rankings panel saw that performance and saw that name and went, oh, she's top 10. And they like, I don't want to be calling people out or anything, but like how many people that do that ranking panel have watched all of Pannie Kianzad's fights? Know who can pick Pannie Kianzad out of a lineup?
Yeah.
None of them. I'll answer
But
that.
they know who Miesha Tate is. And so Miesha Tate comes back. She's in the zeitgeist. We're talking about her. And they go, yeah, top 10. It's why Lena Landsberg's still ranked, right? Like she's been ranked and nothing's happened. They haven't heard anything bad about her. So why drop her? Well, she's been inactive for 18 months because she and Akira Kurosani are having a child together. Congratulations to them.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's breaking news right there for myself.
Not at all breaking news. They've been together for a while.
Yeah. Well, my view on Miesha Tate, I like Miesha Tate. You know, she's a former champion. Of course, she's a big name in the division. That's why they put her at number 8. I understand that from that aspect. I think she should fight Kunitskaya. I feel like that is a fight that kind of would test her to see if she can go in there against a GDR, against a Holly Holm, because Holly Holm is still performing at a high level, right? GDR is very dangerous, man. She could go in there and annihilate Miesha Tate, right? If she goes in there in the next fight. I would put GDR as a heavy favorite if she faces Miesha Tate next. And I could see the UFC doing that for some reason because GDR has been sitting around for a little bit, right? She hasn't fought in a while. We haven't even heard the UFC even talking about her. And she's sitting at number 1, right? Everybody's talking about this weekend, Aspen Ladd, what's going to happen to her if she wins the fight? But she's actually fighting somebody that's number 10. You know what I mean? Like, this division is hard to talk about, you know what I mean? Because there's not much going on, you know what I mean? Like Miesha Tate is the biggest story right now.
Right.
Think about that. We're not even talking about Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena because it's not that, the fight's in a couple of weeks. But yeah, we need some more movement. So hopefully Aspen Ladd does something this weekend and we'll see what they do with the rankings after that. Maybe they'll shoot her up to number 1. Who knows? Yeah. So with the last weekend, what else is interesting? All right, there was some good performances. If I was to give a grade to this show, not a very high grade, I don't believe. You know what I mean? It wasn't very good. I don't like to shit on the fighters too much, but I don't overall as an event probably ranked one of the lowest in performance wise, right? But there were some good fights. Like Billy Q had a very good performance. That was an incredible fight. Rodolfo Vieira, he came back and got that submission win. Jeremy Stevens, man, what do you do with Jeremy Stevens? He's lost, I believe, 5 in a row now. Ryan, does he go to PFL and try to chase that $1 million? What does he need to do?
No, I think you're being a bit harsh here. I think he has a really promising career in bare knuckle boxing that you should go into now. Because what's that? That's 6 losses, right? Like, I don't think that he's coming back to make a title run, even if he changed divisions back to featherweight. I don't think there's any of that. You can leave him in. He can have fun fights. I wouldn't mind seeing him fight someone like I know it wouldn't make sense ranking wise, but as we established, rankings don't matter. Fiziev could be a fun Fiziev. He could be a fun fight at lightweight if Stevens wants that. There's other fun fights for him, but I think his career is going to go to bare knuckle. I'm pretty much calling it. So when it happens, you can all quote me.
Yeah, he actually fits perfect to the bare knuckle mold, right? Like he's a guy that's willing to bang, bro, and he talks that shit a little bit, right? He will go at dudes, and I think that might be a transition. Like Spencer, if you could think of someone that he would be matched up greatly with in bare knuckle, like if you're the promoter, who would you match him up against?
I mean, I don't know the BKFC roster well enough to straight out pick out some names. I think that is a possibility. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get one more shot in the UFC just because he is so long there. He's such a tenured veteran, and you've got it up in front of everybody, right? Like, yes, prior to last weekend, it wasn't 5 straight losses, 4 losses in a no contest because there's an eye poke, but it's against top 5 competition, right? Like, it's not like he's out there getting just torched by scrubs and moving down the ladder and losing to lesser and lesser caliber fighters. Like, he was the guy that Zabit had to beat in order for everybody to think that, to acknowledge fully that Zabit is a legit top 5 guy. Same with Yair Rodriguez coming off of his long layoff. That was the fight that put Calvin Kattar in a position to end up facing Max Holloway 2 fights later. And so I can see him getting one more. It ended quickly. He said all the right things afterwards, apologized, disappointed. I'd like to get one back. This is where you just stick him in there with either another veteran sort of in that weird territory, or a guy like, I mean, you could do the Drakkar Klose fight, obviously. There'd be some tension there. There'd be some heat there. They're both going to sell it by chirping at each other. But I think he still gets one more shot to just see where it is. He was moving back to lightweight. I think a lot of people didn't understand until last weekend how good Mateusz Gamrot is, and he's really good. And so I think we see him get one more before he makes his eventual move. And Ryan is right. I think he's just like a year, maybe 2 years early on Jeremy Stephens and bare knuckles, because he's still only like 33. That's the wild thing too. He's still relatively young.
Yeah, he is. He
or
is
35
still,
maybe.
Yeah, he is still pretty young for how many fights he's had. I
Right.
think he's up there with the records. He's in that cowboy status,
Yeah,
right?
he's in third now.
Yeah, he's in third. He's in the cowboy status, meaning that you can lose like 100 fights in a row and you're still going to fight for the UFC for some reason because Dana White likes you. And, that's an issue that comes up a lot nowadays, right? I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. Is Dana White privilege? Does that exist? And who has some of the most Dana White privilege, do you think, if that is something that is actually something that, is going on in the world of the UFC, Ryan?
Come on now. That's not really a question. You know the answer. Who has the most Dana White privilege? Who fought like 2 weekends ago or 3? Conor McGregor, obviously. He's got the most Dana White privilege. He's going to go into a title shot in his return fight. I'm predicting it. So that is maximum Dana White privilege. Who else? Cowboy's a good one. Kamzat Chimaev, he's got Dana White privilege. He got a ranking after beating someone who was in their debut, So these guys, they haven't worked in the UFC, but it's good. I like it. I think it's hilarious. So, as someone who enjoys the spectacle of the ranking system and Dana's involvement in decision making, it's quite enjoyable to watch. Yeah, so
it is enjoyable to watch. And hey, everybody has their favorites. Like parents, their children. If you have 10 children, you're gonna have your favorite children, right? It's just inevitable. You're not gonna be like, you're gonna say to everybody, yeah, I treat everybody equally, I love everybody equally, but you do have the ones that catch your eye most of the time, right? Like I'm lucky, I only have one child, so I can't decide who's my favorite child. My favorite child is only one child, right? So yeah, I'm gonna keep it that way too. I don't want to get into that dilemma with my favorites. But yeah, the Dana White privilege, that was hilarious, and I loved it. We got, what is it? Synchro Wing, he was saying that strange. J-Skid said Waleed is the best hype man last week. I'm going to go back. Yes, Waleed is a legend.
Waleed is a legend.
Waleed is a legend, and I wish more fighters would have a manager like Waleed that can translate what you're not saying, right?
Yeah,
like 10%.
He goes off book all the time. Like, it is 100% off script. It doesn't matter what you say. Waleed is getting his message across. He's getting the message that he wants you to say across. And he's doing it with the balding eyes and the twitching and the just going crazy, man. He's a wild man. People don't know Waleed Ismail. Spend the time on YouTube. Spend the time on the internet.
Go back and watch him as
nuts.
Go back and watch him as a young man. Like, this dude he has credentials. Like, it's not like he's just some manager that came in with crazy eyes and can speak both languages. No, this guy has credentials. Go back. He has deep history with some of the legends of this sport, particularly Renzo Gracie, which is one of the best beefs. I think it's Renzo Gracie, right? Yeah, Renzo Gracie. I think that's one of the best beefs in jiu-jitsu ever. So go back and, you know, but Waleed, yes, he is the man. He's like the Daniel Day-Lewis of MMA. That's what I want to call him, right? He's just like,
he's the best hype man in terms of like the actual activity. He's the best at getting the message across, but in terms of like fame and notoriety and recognizability, it's Khabib and DC as the tandem act for Islam. I think that's the way you can not be just switching best hype man calls every week.
For sure. Now, you know, I know you guys don't really follow the BKFC scene too much, but man, this weekend, you know what I mean? Like, you gotta kind of tune in for a little bit. I don't really follow it too close, but I did watch Paige VanZant's first fight, and I thought, you know, I don't know what to think really, but we got Tim. He said, I think Paige VanZant is great. Why did the UFC do her so bad at the end of her contract? She would have been a future title contender. I think the UFC, their MO is like, they could only guide you along for so long until it's like, okay, we're going to just throw you in with the wolves and continually throw you in with the wolves until you kind of like fizzle yourself out, because we can't invest more time. We've seen it, right? Macy Barber, look at her. She's fighting this weekend. I think they're doing that to her. There's a bunch of like young talent, right, that the UFC they have a short leash, man. They don't want to take their time and invest unless you have Dana White privilege, right? Then this is a different story, right? But with like, let's say a Chase Hooper. Do you think Chase Hooper has Dana White privilege? Because how many fights is Chase Hooper is going to lose until he gets cut, right? Until he's over at bare knuckle boxing, co-main eventing behind Paige VanZant, right? Like, Chase Hooper, you know, he seems like a nice kid and he's doing things for UFC Fight Pass and he has a good following, but really he's not doing what Sean O'Malley is doing, right? Sean O'Malley's out there like exciting fights. He's shown that he has skills. Chase Hooper, not so much, man. He has so much more to develop, and I feel like him being pushed into the UFC, it kind of will push him out as fast, right? And then next, you know, where is he going to go from there? Like, you're a UFC veteran at 21 years old. That's crazy to me. Like, you're like ex UFC fighter at 21 years old. That's insane, right? Like, that could happen. But anyways, going back to Paige VanZant, you guys, what are your thoughts on Paige and this question right here? Like, did the UFC do her bad?
I don't think they did her bad. I mean, she fought out her contract and wanted out, right? Like, her decision to go to bare knuckle was her choice. She had the opportunity to re-sign if she wanted to. She looked at Bellator where her husband fights. She also didn't, she didn't perform. She was 1-3 in her last 4 fights. Now, is getting thrown in with Amanda Hebos really the best thing you could do for somebody? No, we all knew at the time that was your contract's up, send you out on a loss kind of fight. But before that, she had the fight with Rachel Ostovich, who she's fighting this weekend and in a rematch of sorts. And before that, she lost to Jessica Rose Clark, who I think is a very good fighter in terms of that middle ground, in terms of being one of those people that every division needs. But if you're not able to beat Jessie Jess, then that sort of tells me where you're at. And there's not really, and that was the thing with Paige all the way along, right? She came out of the gates really quick, surprised a lot of people by beating Felice Herring pretty early on, and then got another win and got thrown into some bigger fights and couldn't beat that top level of competition. Every time she would win one, I was out here in Vancouver when she came back after Dancing with the Stars and beat Beck Rawlings, looked great, flying head kick finish. And then she goes out and gets just trucked by Michelle Watterson, who is kind of that benchmark in terms of the division at number 7 or 8 in the division. And if you're not going to rise above that, regardless of the star power, regardless of kind of the following you have, there's a ceiling on how much the UFC is going to continue to run you out there, unless you are a Conor McGregor, unless you are Nathan Diaz or Jorge Masvidal. And for as much as Paige likes to think that she is on that level, she just isn't. And her skills never progressed to where her fame got to after those early fights and those early exposures on things like Dancing with the Stars and doing, the memoir real early of telling everybody her story. It never caught up. And so I don't think they did her dirty. I think it played out the way it played out. Yes, the UFC kind of fast tracks people a little bit more these days, but that's the nature of the beast. And she just got caught up in it and seems really happy in bare knuckles. And we'll see how tomorrow night goes.
The difference I feel like for Paige coming into this fight compared to the first fight was that I think she worked with a different trainer. I believe his name is Pedro Diaz, who's very famous in South Florida. And I think he worked with a bunch of fighters, a few bare knuckle fighters. And I think we're going to see a whole new Paige. I think the first fight, she kind of just dipped her feet into it and, you know, she got worked. But this time, Rachel Ostovich is making her debut. Did you expect this, Ryan? Like Rachel Ostovich, like when she got cut by the UFC or when she got released or if she left or whatever you want to call it, did you expect her to go to bare knuckle boxing? Like, was that something that was in your mind? Like, because I feel like you're really into the bare knuckle boxing I'm pertaining to like fighters leaving the UFC and going there.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say I definitely don't follow the bare knuckle too much, but look, I didn't expect Ostovich to continue fighting at all, to be honest, after a UFC run, because I wouldn't say she's the most skilled fighter with all respect. And she doesn't need to fight. Neither of these girls need to fight. They both have big followings now. They both can go into modeling careers and do their OnlyFans and whatnot and make good money doing that, right? So I feel like the fighting is almost a side hustle at this point, and just because they enjoy doing it, they want to keep doing it, which is fine, and I'm happy for them. But I didn't expect to see Ostovich go to bare knuckle. No.
Yeah, me either. I didn't expect that to happen. And like you said, they have huge followings. You know, they don't really even need to do interviews. They could just make like Paige has her own website that she has so much traffic to, and she says she makes more money off her website than she did fighting for the UFC. I don't even think OnlyFans is a thing that you should even be doing anymore. I think that if you have that big of a following, you can make your own website. I think what's the other girl that joined bare knuckle boxing, Gonzalez? Is that her name?
Pearl Gonzalez, yeah.
Yeah, Pearl Gonzalez, right? She has her own website and she has a huge following, and she's probably making buku bucks, right, off that. And Rachel probably should be doing the same thing, you know. And I'm really concerned for Rachel, as in that she is not a striker. Has she been known to be a striker?
No, she's a grappler, and this is a fight that's easy to sell, right? I think when they announced it and put out the date, Paige said it right. Come for the boobies, stay for the battle. You see what Rachel Ostovich is wearing in the face-off. There's a reason them cheeks are out. That's what people are coming to see. And so I agree with Ryan, man. Like, she didn't need to be in here. I think this gets ugly tomorrow. I think it turns into a showcase kind of opportunity for Paige to look really good and become what bare knuckle wants her to be. And then Rachel Ostovich will figure out what she's going to do next, whether it's modeling or any number of other things that she could do.
And with bare knuckle, they're signing all these like very, beautiful women, right? Beautiful women to fight in their divisions. Pearl Gonzalez, she's beautiful too, right? Paige, Rachel, and they're probably in the works signing some beautiful Russian, or I think that's what they should start doing, is just scour the earth, right? To find the most beautiful women that can fight, that can throw hands, and just create that type of division. And I think that will carry them. But the thing is, the pay-per-view numbers have not been great. That's the confusing part. Like, I feel like they were like at like 5,000 or something like that, like last fight, the first Paige event. So I'm wondering if this one's going to draw more, or is it just going to be the same? And I wonder how they're making money off that. Like, if they're paying Paige what they're paying her, which is pretty good lump sum, it's confusing to me, like how they're keeping this afloat. Do they have something else going on in the background? I know Feldman, the guy that runs the show, his brother or his cousin also was the one that started celebrity boxing. And so there's that connection, right? So maybe they know something we don't know. But man, it's wild, right? It's wild, like how the world has shifted to like bare knuckle boxing, and like YouTubers and TikTokers fighting, and some of them having at least some skills. You know what I mean? It's just, to me, it's crazy, right? But I love it. I think do it. If you can make money doing it, do it, man. I don't feel like it ties in with like MMA. I don't feel it ties in with MMA at all. It's something totally different. You know what I mean? Yes, it crosses over as in like Jake Paul's out there talking massive shit about people that are in the MMA world. But other than that, you know what I mean? Like there's nothing that really connects them because UFC is not sending guys over to what is it, Showtime or whatever to fight, right? Bellator could.
Right.
I think Bellator should start doing it. Bellator has the huge opportunity with their roster and their connection to Showtime and Showtime Boxing. They should be doing it. I think they will eventually, but yeah, it's just weird. And anyways, this guy Dylan Bowker is mentioning this guy named Blueface, and I don't know who
really?
Blueface is. Who is Blueface?
He's
Ryan?
a rapper.
Okay, he's a rapper, and he's fighting on bare knuckle.
No way.
Yeah, I guess he is.
Is he talking about the rapper Blueface, or is there a fighter with a fight name Blueface?
No. It was. I know it's an artist because I remember seeing something about it.
Yeah. No way.
Right?
Let me have a look at this.
So John Nutt,
crazy.
he's coming through telling us some facts right here. It makes total sense. Bare knuckle is the future. Cheaper medicals, less injuries. Just wait for more BKK, which is Bangkok, and coming past lockdown. So I guess after the lockdown, John's gonna dig deep. John is the owner, the founder, the mastermind behind Full Metal Dojo and Fight Circus. Thanks, John. Always tuning in and giving your thoughts. Blueface, he's a rapper. I want to see more rappers go out there. You know, we just saw Tekashi 6ix9ine giving tattoos to Sean O'Malley. When is Tekashi gonna step into the ring against Justin Bieber? That's a fight that I would like to see, right? That would be incredible. You know, why would you not put that together, right? Tom Cruise versus Brad Pitt. Why would you not want to see that? Why would you not why would you, if you could put that together as a promoter? That's a dream. Tom Cruise, Brad Pitt, main event, Justin Bieber, Tekashi 6ix9ine. Actually, those are two different pay-per-view events right there, main events. Why would you not do that, right?
Blueface was actually sorry, you go.
No, go ahead. You're telling us people that are fighting.
I saw Blueface was actually he had like a bit of a back and forth with 6ix9ine. So potentially there's a fight there. They could do that one. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah, man.
And I mean, to your question, John, like,
yeah,
of course you would do it. People are going to watch. Everybody slows down to see the car crash on the side of the road. Everybody wants, you hear the sirens, everybody looks. And same as you. If you can get paid, I'm not knocking anybody's hustle. The sticking point for me and the part for me will always be, then I need circusfights.com to become a thing that everybody starts writing for, and that those stories filter over there, because it crushes me when MMA websites and mainstream websites that are supposed to be covering MMA or are covering MMA dedicate so much time to the YouTubers, to the TikTokers, to this stuff that athletes that have been grinding it out for years in MMA aren't getting that shine. And I understand why. I've been doing this a long enough time that I know about traffic and what people want to read and all of those things, but it's still just one of those things that it's always going to be frustrating to me to jump on a site wanting to see something about a competitor competing this week or later this month or whatever, and have to sift through Logan Paul's going to fight Anderson Silva and Jake Paul talking more junk at Tyron Woodley and bare knuckle is happening this weekend. And here's the latest photo gallery of Paige VanZant, and here's the latest photo gallery of Rachel Ostovich. Just give me a site that will give me just MMA, and I'm in. And then keep the rest, hustle the rest. We're good. Make your money, put on your crazy shows. I don't have to watch them. I'm not watching them. We're all good.
Yeah, I completely understand, where you're coming from with that. Yes, you could separate it if you really wanted to, but that I don't think it's ever going to happen, right? Because it's just all mixed together, right? Because at the end of the day, it's all about traffic. Exactly, creating traffic, having people come in and read what you're writing about, and even videos and stuff like that too. That's how it is, and that's how it's going to work. And there's going to be websites that only focus on certain things, right? Like TMZ, they were focused on car crashes. Now they're actually having fighters on there because why? They see that there's some traffic they could get with that. And then, of course, fighters are going to go anywhere that they're going to allow them to promote with a big audience. And with that cycle of events and the ecosystem that has been created, it's always going to be that way, right? You're going to go on these bigger websites and they're going to always cover every aspect as long as it's tied into somebody involved in MMA. Anderson Silva, Tyron Woodley, those types of people. But let's talk about some real fighters now, some bangers, right? We were talking about the lightweight division earlier. This week, Chandler came out with the video. Actually, shout out to Chandler. He did a great job on the ESPN broadcast. He's very professional, smooth talker. Kind of sounds like a pimp to me a little bit. Yeah, he's that smooth, right? He's that smooth. And I guess he did an interview with, I believe it was, I forgot who it was. I think it was with Mac Life. And in the interview, he accused or alleged that Michael Chandler was ducking him, right? So Michael Chandler was accused Justin Gaethje of ducking him, right? And then Justin Gaethje responds on Twitter. If you see on the screen, he says, Chandler is talking out of his ass. I was waiting for the bout agreement 3 weeks into camp and wake up to news his daddy Dana gave him the shot. He's been out of commission since the KO. What am I missing? I'm on vacay and this fucker is slandering my name 3-4 times. And then you wrote something that I woke up yesterday to train for a matchup with Chandler on May 15th, expecting a bout agreement any moment. Today that is not the case. I don't know what to do yet, but I like this feeling. It was a good day at sparring. So I guess this one was a long time ago. This one was actually from July 22nd, which is what's today? That was yesterday, right? This is yesterday.
It's
so
today,
yeah, today. So Ryan,
today,
man, yeah. So Ryan, look, I like this. I like Chandler's getting involved. I like Justin firing back. This is something that is based off facts, and I don't know if it's based off facts because Justin Gaethje is saying it's not facts, right? But I don't look at Chandler being a liar either at the same time, right? And these guys do have managers, and sometimes the managers are doing something in the background maybe the fighters might not know about, which is to their benefit, right? Sometimes it happens, right? Sometimes fighters or management get fight offers and the fighter doesn't even find out about it, right? Because the manager blocks that fight, because why? The manager's there to be that buffer zone. You don't have to tell the fighter everything, unless you have a relationship like that. Maybe that's the situation right here, but I guess we're going to get this fight, right? Do you think like this is enough? This back and forth is enough for us to get Gaethje versus Chandler booked in the next couple of weeks, Spencer?
I mean, I think it probably is. It seems like, as we were talking about earlier with the division, right? This feels like the matchup the UFC will move towards. It makes a lot of sense. Gaethje's last fight was against Khabib, loses in a title shot. Chandler's last fight loses in a title shot. Kind of makes sense. They've got this beef going on. They're chirping each other. Obviously, Justin Gaethje thought he was going to fight him before Chandler got the fight with Charles Oliveira. And so I think we see it. I think we see it probably towards the end of the year. It wouldn't surprise me if it ended up on the same card as Oliveira and Poirier, kind of as that just in case fight. If somebody gets hurt, one of these two guys can make the case to jump in there. And so it seems like this is where we're going.
Ryan, would you go any other way? Is there any other fight for these guys to take? Because if you do put this here, Gaethje would be fighting for that title shot, right? And Chandler is just fighting for his position. Which is that's what you want coming off a loss in a title fight, is to be able to fight somebody and keep that top position, right?
Yeah, he's gonna want. I think if Gaethje gets a win here, if Poirier wins the title against Oliveira, I think there's a lot of reason to have that rematch. I think it makes a lot of sense. But the thing with Gaethje that worries me now is that these top guys, Dariush is a problem for him, in my opinion. Oliveira is a problem for him in a sense that we saw in the fight with Khabib that if you can get him down, you can submit him. On his back, he had really no defense. So I think there's a lot of tough challenges there. So I want to see him take on a Chandler who probably is going to be happy to stand there and strike with him and give him the wrestling push as well and really see where he stacks up, because you just know that his next fight, they're going to try and take him down. It's going to be like a Tony Ferguson. Look, Tony Ferguson's last two fights. What have they done? dragged him to the ground and beat him there. So I do worry for Gaethje in any fight he gets now. But he does have that knockout power and he has good wrestling defense. So yeah, I think he gets a title shot if he gets a win. I think it's just one.
Was Gaethje exposed in the Khabib fight?
I thought so, but yeah.
It seems like that fight was like 3 years ago. Does it seem like that? Like
it feels like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, it does.
I mean, look, October's around the corner, so it's almost a year ago. I don't know if I would go as far as to say exposed, because like Khabib is Khabib, like he exposes everybody. But as Ryan said, you put him on your back, and there weren't a lot of options. There wasn't a lot of good decision making. And so I think once we saw the way that fight played out, right? As soon as Khabib got him down and figured out he could control him and pass in that second half of the first round, then it was just second round, let's go, put him on the ground, and we'll go through the chain, and we'll just next step. You're caught, we're done, goodbye. And so I agree with Ryan that all of these guys that have the wrestling acumen, that have the grappling acumen, are 100% going to try to get in and get him on the ground. But nobody so far has proven to be, on that Khabib level. And so when Beneil Dariush comes in and dives on a single or dives at an ankle, Justin Gaethje is going to be firing those hammers, and he can knock you out. And so that becomes the really, really fun kind of proposition of all of these fights, is who can get in there and do the thing that we think is the way to beat him, or the safer way to beat him, let's say, because we've seen him beaten on the feet, but who can withstand that power coming back the other way as well. But I do think that all of those guys are going to be looking to wrestle. I think Chandler is the best kind of combination of the two skills to kind of match up and test Justin and go with him wherever the fight takes place. And so when you add in the beef and the trash talk and the expectation that it was going to happen before, it makes sense as the next fight, as much as I still push for Islam versus Michael Chandler instead.
And with Gaethje, right? Gaethje in that Khabib fight, I think that's the only fight that Khabib pulled guard. Would you consider that Khabib pulling guard in that triangle? Like, he was so confident that, Gaethje is a high-level mixed martial artist, that he could get out of submissions if he really needs to. And Khabib locked in the triangle and then went to his back. That's how confident he was, right? Because that could go terribly wrong for a lot of fighters, right? Like, ground and pound is serious, right? And Gaethje has some serious ground and pound, but Khabib must have saw something. His coaches must have saw something, right? And what else intrigues me about Gaethje's comeback is he's been training with Kamaru Usman for the last, I don't even know how many camps. He's been the main guy training with Usman for his title fights, right? I wonder how much improvement he's made with him every day, grinding with him every day, right? And of course, he goes over to Elevation and spars with those guys, and there's a lot of good fighters over there. I'm interested to see that. I'm interested to see Gaethje's, coming off that type of loss, what he can do against a Chandler. Because like Chandler said, he doesn't have many fights, so he does need to get this fight in. He cannot step back and fight at Islam, because that fight, I don't think is going to do. I think it's more of a risk to fight Islam than it's to fight Gaethje, in my opinion, for Chandler at where he's at in his career, right? If he was younger, then it's a different story. Yeah. But he's not younger, right? He doesn't have time to go on a losing streak. That's something that he doesn't have, can't risk, right? So that's just my Ryan, you wanted to add something?
Did I? Let me think. I can't remember. Look, I think for Justin Gaethje, a Poirier fight would be the most fun for all us fans, and it would be the most entertaining to watch, and it would probably be one of the better chances you have, because Poirier's not going to try and wrestle him. So yeah, hopefully he gets a win over Chandler or whoever he fights, and then we see a rematch there, because I know I want to see it.
Yes, definitely. We all want to see all those fights, man. There's so many good fights. This is like, I forgot who put up a tweet, but this is like the first time that the top of the division is without Conor, Ferguson, and Khabib in a long time. And we have so many fresh fresh rotation right there, right? So we love it. It's like going to one of those conveyor belt sushi bars, right? It's like so fresh rotation, right? Everything, something new is coming through, right? And that's what we want in the division, and it's nice to see that. Hopefully they do book some fights though. Like I just, it's fun to speculate, but it's it's funner to just have something booked, and then now we could focus on the matchup and like what they're doing to prepare for that style, and that's what makes MMA so much fun, man. The different stylistic matchups that we get to see. Now moving on, we got this little, I don't know if it's a controversy, but a little happenstance or whatever you want to call it with Brendan Moreno. He's talking about he doesn't want to rematch Figueiredo. He'd rather go and face Cody Garbrandt as his next title option in this interview that he did yesterday. And it's weird, right? Like, you can understand that Cody Garbrandt is a former champ. He's a bigger name compared to anybody on the flyweight roster, right? But at the same time, if you're a flyweight in that top 5 or top 10, you would hate it if Garbrandt came down and got an immediate title shot, especially after he just got beaten by Rob Font. He's coming off a loss, so he just drops down and gets a title shot, which in the competitor's eyes is like, that doesn't make any sense. But we're not competitors. We're guys that watch it from the stands. Spencer, would you put that fight together, or is Figueiredo the guy that should get the next?
I don't even know if it's Figueiredo that should get next. I mean, Alex Perez and Askar Askarov are supposed to fight. I think if Askar Askarov gets a win there, he's got a history with Brandon Moreno battling to him a sketchy kind of draw in his debut and Moreno's return, so you could run that one back. And I mean, if Alex Perez gets a win and becomes the first guy to beat Askar Askarov, then I could see them going that way. I agree with the reaction face that Ryan had when you mentioned Cody Garbrandt, of just like, I mean, as you said, right? Like I get it. He's a name. He's a former champ, but he's also 1-4 in his last 5 fights, and 3 of those are knockouts. And he didn't have anything for Rob Font. Like, more power to Cody if he can get it. And it feels like the kind of fight that the UFC would book, because they were talking about sending Cody Garbrandt down after he got back in the win column and wanted to send him down. And, he knocks out Rafael Assunção, and he was going to go down and fight Deiveson Figueiredo. And so I could see it happening because of the marketability and because of the name recognition. But I'm 100% going to watch it, but it doesn't make sense to me. I'm past the days of let's just hustle the biggest name possible in there, regardless of what they've been doing, especially when there are guys and men and women at the top of these divisions that have put in the work and earned the position they have. If there's nobody in line, if it's sort of, one of those situations where there isn't really a legitimate number 1 contender and you got to do some figuring out, fine. That's when you do Israel Adesanya going up and facing Jan Blachowicz. That makes sense. Both guys needed something. But when you have a situation when there's people queued up, there's no need to drop Cody Garbrandt in there coming off a loss just because people recognize his name.
In the luncheon, right? I wanted to get Ryan's take on these quotes, right? It says Moreno said to ESPN during the media scrum, Cody Garbrandt wants to come to the division. It's a huge fight because I know he's not in the best part of his career, but he's a good name. He's a former champ. He has a really good brand behind him. He's an option. Now, the key part of this quote is, I know he's not in the best part of his career. Dissect that, Ryan. Like, what does that really mean? Does that really mean that he wants to take an easier fight? Does he feel like Garbrandt is the easier fight?
I think he was just trying to justify it to the people interviewing him of why he would take the fight. Like, oh, I get it, guys. He's not in the best part of his career, but I still want it because he's a brand. Look, the fight doesn't make sense to me. The Figueiredo rematch doesn't even make sense to me, in my opinion. We've seen it twice. The fight to make at flyweight right now is Figueiredo versus, what's his name? Garbrandt. If Garbrandt wants to come down, do those two, and that could be a number one contender fight. I'm fine with that. Unless Askar, what is Askarov? Yeah. Unless he goes out there and puts some work on Alex Perez and does something incredible, then he can jump to a title shot, which would make sense. But otherwise, put together the Figueiredo versus Garbrandt fight now, a main event on a fight night. See where Garbrandt stacks up against these 25ers. Because, look, if he goes down, and I don't want to imply any illicit substance use, so if he goes down, he looks like TJ in terms of performance, not the drugs, this could just be a bad move for him, and we could see him have to go right back up to bantamweight. And, look, if he goes down and loses a fight night, then I think that he could work his way back up. But if he goes down and loses a title shot immediately, he's not going to work his way back to a title there. And then how are you going to justify him working his way to a title at bantamweight? It's going to be really tough if he gets another title shot. Give him some time off.
If you do put that fight together between Figgy and Garbrandt, right? What if both guys miss weight? And then you just have to create just become a 35 fight, right? And I would like to see that. I think that's a crazy matchup right there, right? Garbrandt, great speed, right? Accuracy is good too. And then you got Figueiredo that's just going to march forward and just throw bombs. Like, why would you not want to see that? That's going to be a finish for sure. I would be really surprised if they didn't finish each other.
There was also a little bit of talk about Kyte France as well.
That's right.
With Garbrandt, 100% would watch. Give me Don't Blink in there, just throwing bombs, trying to take Cody's head off. Cody doing the same the other way. Like, same thing. Get him one in the division. Make him prove he can make weight. I think that was part of the problem. And look, TJ's talked about it at great length, right? Like, that was part of the problem for him, is leading up to the fight, he figured out, I can't make this weight and my body still respond and my body still allow me to go in there and compete. And so rather than just hustling these guys into lower weight classes for title shots right away, make him prove he can hit 125 and that he's going to go down there and stick around. Because if he goes down and wins the title, let's say we do the title fight. He goes down there, he makes weight, wins the title. Is he sticking around? Or is he going to go back up and now that becomes his way to kind of skip the line a little bit at bantamweight? Make him prove he can hit 125 and still look good, so we don't get, as Ryan said, kind of the TJ performance situation, not any other situation. And then we go from there.
Yeah, in a way, I feel like the UFC in the lower divisions, they, like Askarov, like, he's a name, like, he should be next, right? A lot of people believe that, and I can see why they believe that. But in the lower weight divisions, in the lightweight division, you see Islam. They're pushing him, right? He's from Dagestan. He represents that area of the world. But Askarov, I believe he's from the same area. But why are they not pushing him? It seems like in the lower weight classes, they don't want, or it's not like they don't want, but it's like they're not smitten to the idea of like a Russian champion at flyweight, right? At that weight class. They'd rather have someone that's in North America or South America, right? Someone on this side of your side of the world, Spencer.
And for the most part, those title fights aren't usually headlining pay-per-views, right?
Yeah.
And so the push to have that person be kind of a headlining big star isn't necessarily there the way that it is at about lightweight and up. We've seen the lightweight title fight. We will see the lightweight title fight headline this next pay-per-view that it's on. And I think that's kind of the dividing line for them. And anything above that, need you to be a star, need you to be a name, need you to be marketable. And below that, they're looking for the name that will get people in. Those fights are going to be the secondary fights on a pay-per-view. They're going to be the co-main event. And so it's, how can we get people paying attention the most? And that's why Henry Cejudo's name still comes up all the damn time. It's why we get talk of Cody Garbrandt going down. It's why back years ago, Anthony Pettis was talked about going down and fighting Jose Aldo without ever having been down to 45. Because they're just always trying to put that biggest name in there to get the eyeballs, where they don't necessarily have to build them up as strong as we've seen in some of the heavier weight classes, where there is a lot more heavy lifting required of those champions.
And I also believe that the UFC would love to have Brendan Moreno as the champion for a while at
Yes.
flyweight, because he's Mexico, huge country of just fighters, right? They're like kind of like the Philippines, you know, like how Manny Pacquiao had that support from the Philippines, and he has the audience of in the US and everything. And Filipinos are everywhere. They're like kind of like the Chinese. They're everywhere in the world, right? Every country you go to, there's Filipinos and Chinese everywhere, right? So yeah, I think Brendan Moreno, it's good business. It's good business for them to have Brendan Moreno fighting guys that he is the favorite heading into the fight. And I feel like Askarov stylistically is not going to work well for Moreno. I still think Moreno has a good chance of beating him.
Fight. Yeah.
It's a very tough fight, right?
It's a tough fight with not a lot of name value.
Exactly.
He doesn't do a lot.
Can I chime in for a second? I could be wrong. Like, if you know, let me know. Because isn't Askarov deaf or something? Because I feel like the UFC won't want to market someone who's not going to be as vocal themselves, right? So that's probably their hesitancy to put him into a title fight. Because, like, if he gets the belt, he's not going to be as talkative as someone like Moreno. He's not going to be able to do all the media, and it won't sell for the American market, especially, as well as someone like Moreno who's on the mic talking all the time. You know.
The unfortunate part of that, to me, as a journalist and as a guy that's written for newspapers, as a guy that's writing at a site now where we're kind of focused on different stories, not just previewing fights, where we want to tell stories about these athletes. The fact that he is deaf is an amazing story. He competed in the Deaf Olympics and won a medal. He is now the #1 contender in the UFC. That's a huge marketing story. It's like, imagine putting that guy out there and rallying those communities behind him. And so I agree with you 100% that that's probably part of it, is that there's the language barrier. And then there's the challenge just with his natural hesitancy to speak and needing translation for everything. But it's also still just a great story, and they have history. And so we don't need to force feed Cody Garbrandt into this situation. Let things play out at 25. We will get good fights. Brandon Moreno can do the heavy lifting. He is wonderful on the mic. He speaks multiple languages. He is the most lovable dude you're going to find. Everybody enjoys him. He'll do the work. Just give the flyweights their chances.
All right. So before we get into previewing a little bit of the card coming up this weekend, Tim, he's like in the comments just going crazy about Zhang Weili. So we got to get into it, you know, since we're a live chat. Says, do you agree that Zhang is the worst UFC champion ever? She held up the division for an entire year. Now, you guys got to remember that there was a champion in the UFC that never even defended their title. You know what her name was? GDR. She won the belt. She never defended her title, right? Not
neither
one time.
Did Nico Montano.
Nico Montano. So I don't know.
Neither did Conor McGregor.
And neither did
That's
Conor
two
McGregor.
belts.
And so how is Zhang Weili the worst champion ever in UFC history? I don't understand that argument. And he's saying, like, not only did she hold up this, she also beat she never beat anybody with a name. She beat JJ, and then he says JJ got robbed, and then he says, I don't understand why people like Zhang. She's the worst. I don't know why she's the worst. Yeah, I don't know what is. Well, I don't care if it's a troll. Like, I would give the exposure. She fooled the fans into believe. I don't understand how she fooled the fans into believing anything. She doesn't even really do too many interviews at all, right? It's not like she's a master of persuasion like Conor McGregor, right? And he says, Spencer, do you agree with me that Zhang is a fraud? Maybe. No. I don't think Spencer believes that at all. Not even like 0.5%. She also mentally weak by cutting her hair and blaming the booze on her loss.
Job. You get baited.
Yeah. No. But the thing is, it's funny. Like, this troll is like retarded, right? Like, seriously, mental illness is going on. And if you're really a USC PhD, come on, Tim. Let's be better than that. And then he brings up the legend Brian Campbell saying that she was made in a lab. USADA needs to expose her. And, what can we do? What can we do?
Yeah, my takeaway from that is shouts to BC.
Yeah, what can we do, man? What can we do with the people here? But, Tim, appreciate you watching, man, and going off on Zhang Weili, and the hate is real. So let's keep it rolling. Now, let's talk about this weekend, man, because talking about state-sponsored steroids, but this wasn't state-sponsored. It was sponsored by his sponsors, probably. I don't know. He has a lot of money. TJ Dillashaw, right? He gets busted for PEDs. He's coming back after a couple of years. I'm a guy that thinks he did it once. Maybe he did it in the past. We don't know, but let's give him a chance. Like let's give people a chance, right? They did something wrong. He came out and said he did something wrong, and he's saying some things in the media that's kind of irks me a little bit, but still, he confessed to it. And he said he did it wrong. He wants to move on. He's not worried about his reputation, and he just wants to fight. I think that's very good heading into this fight. Like, he's not worried about that aspect of it. He's worried about Corey Sandhagen. Now, let's, moving past that, just the matchup in itself and the circumstances surrounding it. Spencer, what do you see, man? And before you speak, everybody, you guys got to go get on that mailing list for Kimura, Keyboard Kimura, and you can find that on Substack. Spencer puts out some great work over there. Check that shit out. Spencer, Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw, who's taking this thing?
I mean, I'm leaning Corey Sandhagen just because of the activity, just because 2 years off is difficult, especially at 35. I was caught off guard when I was talking to TJ, and he mentioned that he was 35 because it just threw me for a loop that he's that old, because it means I'm as old as I am. We've been talking since his tough 14 days, and so it's weird that was that long ago. But just because of the time off, I'm leaning towards Corey Sandhagen. But I do think the potential is there for this to be a really competitive fight, and for TJ Dillashaw to come out and get a victory. I think that betting line, as tight as it is, makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm in the same boat as you in terms of, let's give these guys a chance to prove where they are and what they're doing, or in this case, not doing, and see where they're at. They do have a little bit of history together. They've trained together. TJ used to go out to Colorado to work with Bang Ludwig and mix in time and elevation. He's still listed on Tapology at being at the elevation fight team. So there you go. But I lean to Corey Sandhagen based on activity in the last two performances, but I think we get a hell of a fight.
We do get a hell of a fight, man. I can't wait for this fight. It's just so much intrigue, right? With TJ Dillashaw coming back, and Corey Sandhagen has looked phenomenal against some, you could argue, right, Ryan? Like, the last two levels of competition, not the highest level, but I think Corey needed that after coming off the Aljamain fight.
Yeah, look, I think that what I took from the last two fights that Corey had is that he has obviously got a pretty wide arsenal of dynamic striking, which is something he needs going to this fight against TJ. I think he needs to stay long. And look, if I was making a pick on this fight, I'm pretty confident with my pick. I think Sandhagen's going to finish him, and I think it's going to be early. But I'll tell you what, if he doesn't, I think TJ is going to use his wrestling a heap, like we saw in the Sterling fight, where Sterling was able to get him down by pressuring him to the cage and submit him fairly easily. I don't think Sandhagen will be submitted as easily this time if he is. But I think TJ is going to employ his wrestling a whole lot more than we're used to. Because if he stands with Sandhagen, I just think Sandhagen's too dynamic. He's too long, which is a key factor in this one. The reach, I think, is probably the same, right? But no, it's not. It's almost, I'm trying to read the screen here. He's a lot taller. He's a lot longer, so we can use his reach better. And look, I just expect Sandhagen to be better all around. And I don't even know what you do if TJ loses this fight for him. So I really do hope for his sake he can get back in the win column here.
Now, we talk about the dynamic striking of Sandhagen and the diversity that he brings, right? But we were saying that about TJ. Remember when TJ came through and showed his new style? We were saying, like, this dude is the next level Dominic Cruz. And then when Sandhagen came through, everybody's like, oh, this dude is the next Dominic Cruz. So we get to see who's the next Dominic Cruz. No, I'm just kidding. There's no
two evolutionary Dominic Cruz.
Yeah, because if I saw somebody make a great point on Twitter about Corey Sandhagen. He's not really similar to Dominic Cruz. Someone was saying that he's very similar to Carlos Condit more. You know what I mean? The way his body is built and the way that he moves. And I can see that. It's kind of like he's a hybrid of Dominic Cruz and Carlos Condit, right? He takes a little bit of both. Maybe he didn't do that on purpose, but that's what I see after someone pointing that out. Now with TJ, and you mentioned his wrestling, Go back to his fight against John Lineker, a guy, if you stood up with him, he'll knock your head off. And I can see TJ implementing kind of the same style game plan. Even though John Lineker was a smaller, more compact guy, I still think TJ's wrestling is better than Sandhagen's wrestling, and probably his grappling, overall grappling, is probably better than Sandhagen. We won't know until they step into the cage, but looking at previous fights, and I think TJ only got better in the last 2.5 years, and his body is 100%, as close to 100% you can be after getting those surgeries. So we will see, you know, I mean, without Dillashaw, you know, in the back of his mind thinking like, hey, are my shoulders going to pop out? Now his shoulders are 100% fine, right? So I'm excited for this fight. I like Corey Sandhagen. TJ Dillashaw, he was one of my favorite fighters to watch. And maybe I'm going to go back to that. Maybe I'm going to watch this fight and he goes in there and finishes Corey Sandhagen. I'm going to be like, this dude didn't miss a step. But then at the same time, the reputation is going to come back and people are going to be like, oh, this guy, let's test him 1,500 times to see if he was taking anything else. And you know how it's going to work out. You know how it's going to play out if he wins this fight.
It's a lose. It's going to play out too. Yeah. That's the fun part. He's steering into it. Like I talked to him a couple of weeks ago, and like I said, I've been talking to him throughout his career. We have a really good relationship. And I said, look, man, like, is there any way that you can escape this? Is there any way that what you did in the past is people are gonna give you credit for it, and that whatever you do going forward doesn't carry this huge asterisk where people are just like, nah, it doesn't count. He's probably still using. And he just started laughing and was like, no, of course not, right? Like, of course not. And that's the punishment of what he did and what he brought upon himself. And I love the fact that he's aware of that and just steering into it. He knows and he came out right away and said, I did this. I accept my punishment. Let's go. And he needed to do that so he could get to a point where he is now. And now he's he's happy to play that villain role. If he goes out there and smashes, I also asked how he does force his way back into the title picture. And he said, I'm just too effing good. Like, you know, like, look, I'm going to go out, I'm going to smash Corey Sandhagen, and they can't keep me out of it because I'm that good. And then I'm going to become the second guy to win the same title 3 times. Shouts to Randy Couture. And I mean, he's steering into this black hat character, right? Like, I love it. I'm in. Yeah. Win or lose, I like this version of TJ Dillashaw.
Do it. And now, you know, the co-main event, there's some breaking news on that, Spencer, right?
Like, yeah, right see now, the chat.
Yeah.
What happened? Like,
I mean, I happened to get a little update on my on my Twitter feed, and it's been that fight has been pulled. They haven't announced which of those 2 women is injured, but there is an injury, and so that fight is no longer taking place, which is really unfortunate. Obviously, I think we all hope that whoever is injured, whatever it is nothing serious, and we can get this rebooked, because it was a really interesting fight and a really important fight for both women. Aspen Ladd coming back off the knee injury, Macy Chasson moving up the ranks, trying to get that big win that puts her into title contention. So hopefully it's nothing serious. Hopefully whoever is injured can get back quick enough that we can keep this pairing together.
Yeah, and they haven't weighed in yet, so it must have to do something with weigh-in, right? Cutting weight. It's got to be, right? Like, let's speculate on this. Like, how did someone get injured this close to the fight? Doesn't make any sense. It must.
I mean, your last pad session, you roll an ankle, you tweak a knee or something, right? Like if Aspen Ladd, right, coming off a major reconstruction, I think she had a setback as well along the way, months and months and months ago, and so you worry about stuff like that. But we've seen it, right? You catch an errant elbow and suddenly there's a cut, or you just land something the wrong way and you break your foot, or who knows. We'll find out. The intrepid reporters that alerted us to it as we were taping this will get the goods and get the information, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and if you go down in, you know, I guess this will probably be the co-main event now, which is Kyler Phillips versus Rulian Paiva. Now with Paiva, he was a guy that was at flyweight and he missed weight a bunch of times, but he had some pretty good performances, you know, against the top level competition over there. I believe he was ranked too. But Kyler Phillips, man, he has come into his own. He's still a young guy. you know, a lot of people saw him on the Ultimate Fighter and thought like, he might just fizzle out, but he didn't, man. He came back and he's looking really, really good. I think that this is kind of like a showcase fight for Phillips here. Wasn't he originally supposed to fight Song Yadong? Did I
He
remember?
beat Song Yadong, and he was supposed to fight Asen Sao.
Oh, that's right.
And then Asen Sao injured his elbow or his bicep, something like that.
Well, you know, that was a huge opportunity, but now this is do you think, Ryan, this is a showcase fight that he can go in there and kind of melt through Paiva real easy?
Yeah, Paiva's good, but I think that Phillips just mauls him, to be honest. Like, I was really impressed with that Song Yadong fight because I thought that I thought he was going to lose, to be honest, if I'm being honest. I thought Song was going to pull that one off, but Phillips used his like fully well-rounded game. He won on the feet. He used his grappling a lot and managed to maul him with that. So, look, I've been impressed with Phillips recently, and I think I can't see any reason why he doesn't pass this one as well.
Yeah, Phillips, he's a character too, man. If you watch his interviews, I've interviewed him a few times. He's always fun to chat with because he brings like this, I don't know, this new age samurai style just mixed in with some hip hop or something. I don't know. It's just it's funky, man, and I like it. And I wish he wasn't in the same camp as Sean O'Malley, because I would love to see that fight. If you were gonna put a fight together, if Phillips won against Paiva, I would have put Sean O'Malley versus Kyler Phillips. Stylistically, wouldn't that be,
that's
phenomenal?
A fun fight.
Yeah, it's violent right there, right, Spencer? So it's gonna be good. You got to keep a close eye on Kyler Phillips. I think a lot of people, if you're sleeping on him, don't sleep. This weekend is the one to watch, but watch him go out there and Paiva just annihilates him with like one punch in 3 seconds, and then we're just looking like idiots. We got egg on our face. But there's some really, really good fights on this card, man. Really, really good fights for up and comers. Especially, I don't want to glance over Darren Elkins and Derek Minner, but yeah, that one, I don't know what to think of that too much. But Macy Barber versus Miranda Maverick. I think they should push this up to the co-main event. This is my view. If you don't have Aspen Ladd, I think they should do that. I think, or even put what's another fight down the line right here? Adrian Yanez and Randy Costa.
Yep, that's a good event.
Yeah, that's a good one. You could even push Puna Soriano, Brendan Allen into that Kona main event. Like, to me, those are the 3 fights I'm most interested in watching. Of course, you want to see TJ come back, but Macy Barber, Miranda Maverick, Puna versus Allen, and Yanez versus Costa. Which one for you, Spencer, is the one that we should be just keeping our eye close on, and who has the most potential if they win their fight?
So I'm gonna hedge a little bit and say you should be watching all 3 of them because they're great fights, and they're very similar fights in that it's move one of these people forward, and that forward step puts them either in the top 15 when you're looking at the middleweights, or Macy Barber and Miranda Maverick are both already ranked. So that's a step up closer towards the top 10. And then for Yanez and Costa, it's closer to that top 15 in the really stacked bantamweight division. For me, it's the Puna Soriano Brendan Allen fight because the dynamic of it is so interesting to me. Puna's got a bunch of hype, but doesn't have a ton of experience, hasn't logged a lot of time in the UFC yet or even overall. Whereas Brandon Allen is a kid that has been fighting for a number of years. He's still only 25. But he fought a real tough slate on his way to the UFC. He's been in there with some good guys. He's got a win over Kevin Holland, Tom Breeze. Looked really great last time out. I talked to both of them when I mentioned to Puna that this was like, look, man, you're getting a little bit of taking 2 stairs at once here in the step up. He kind of just went like, I don't know, maybe, but I'm pretty good and I'm going to fight this guy. And so I'm stoked for that one. I think it's really intriguing, but all 3 of them are absolutely terrific fights.
Ryan, out of the 3 fights, your fight of the night and which fighter, even though if it's not the fight of the night, the winner, who do you think would be a top 5 fighter by, let's say, 2022 out of those?
2022. Well, fight of the night it's probably going to be Yanez versus Costa, right? Like, I think that's pretty much a given. Out of all those fighters, who would be top 5 next year? I don't know. I have kind of an inclination to be Moreno Maverick, right? Like out of all those people, Maverick seems to me the one with the best chance of getting into the top 5 by that time next year, especially given how her division is. So, yeah, I'll go with Maverick.
When you look at these 6 fighters, right, the scariest fighter to me is Puna Soriano. But this dude just throws hard, dude. Like, did you see some of the pictures that they put up of like the highlights of his knockouts? The face that the guys make when they get hit by Puna, man. This dude is just and his personality doesn't even fit it, dude. Like when you talk to him, he's one of the nicest dudes ever, right? Like so polite, doesn't have a bad thing to say about anybody. And I'm just wondering what can irk Puna Soriano. That's what I'm interested in. Like what makes Puna angry? And maybe that's the secret to his success, right? He doesn't get angry and he could just go in there calm and compete. And that's how he's able to go in there, land bombs. I just hope he doesn't have that like Uriah Hall moment, you know, where he knocks somebody out and it just kind of messes with him, you know, mentally. I just don't hope he doesn't have that. It could happen in this fight, right? Where he he has that like,
he's got that kind of power.
He does. It's like that Francis Ngannou, Alistair Overeem knockout. You know, it was just like Francis could have watched that knockout and it's just been concerned, but Francis is just the predator. Wasn't Francis' original nickname the Predator?
Yep.
Yeah. So the Predator, right? He was the Predator. Like Puna, I wonder where he can go, man. I think that this fight is so interesting because if Brendan Allen can get Puna to the ground and ride him, can Puna survive that and then get it back to the feet? But if it doesn't get to the feet, I don't see Brendan Allen being able to because he's going to get his striking might most likely is better because he's working at Sanford. But if he gets touched by Puna, man, it's just, can he handle that? Right. So we will see because Brendan Allen, he got knocked out by
Sean Strickland.
That's right. And if you're going to compare power between those two guys, Sean Strickland and Puna Soriano, Puna is just like, I don't know. Does it seem like I'm fanboying?
The Strickland fight was death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly.
And Puna is, I'm going to hit you once and you're going to go to sleep.
Exactly. Puna is that wrecking ball, right? He's a wrecking ball. Another fight that's somewhat interesting is Mickey Gall coming back against Jordan Williams. I really like Jordan Williams. He's he's a great guy to talk to. He has a great story. He actually he fought with a broken neck. I was talking to him ahead of this fight. He fought with a broken neck for like multiple fights, which is insane to me. And then he finally got that fixed. So, and he moved to Factory X for this upcoming fight. So he's living in Colorado, moved to Factory X. He's gotten his neck unbroken, right? He
moving to welterweight.
Moving to welterweight. Got stem cells, shot into him to help him with the recovery. Mickey Gall, has he been a disappointment, Ryan, to you? Like coming off, that beating CM Punk and.
I said it in a preview for the event that I did. He has had an odd UFC career. Like that's how I'd describe it. It's been odd. He come in, he beat CM Punk as he should have. He had that fight with Sage Northcutt from memory, and then he lost to Mike Perry in his last one. I don't think that he's really looked great in his UFC career, and he definitely didn't look good in his last fight. I'm not sure how he compares to Williams because I'm not too familiar with Williams, but I wouldn't say I'm excited to watch this fight, John. So maybe it's just me, but
yeah, I think it could be a showcase fight for Williams, right? He is coming off a loss to Imanov, and Imanov is fighting actually against Ian Heinisch earlier in the card, and I thought that was a tough fight for your debut. I feel like this is more of his dance, and if he could go in there and do what he needs to do, and he's got a good coaching staff now behind him. Well, he had a good coaching staff, but like a different coaching staff that he feels like he has more confidence with. I'm ready for that. And then Elise Reed, 4-0, a military woman. She comes in against Sijara Eubanks at 125. Sijara Eubanks has had trouble in the past making weight at 125. She's actually ranked at bantamweight. So I'm very interested to see if she actually does make the weight and how much it affects her in the fight. Elise Reed, I interviewed her too ahead of the fight, and she said that if she comes in, handicapped a little bit, it's going to be a problem for her. Elise Reed says, like, if you're going to gamble on me. I'm going to be the underdog no matter what. So put some money on that. And, you could believe her or not. it's up to you, right? But Sijara Eubanks, a tough veteran. We'll see what happens with that fight. She's 6-6. Usually you don't see records like that in the UFC, except for like maybe the women's divisions, right? You see that quite often, but maybe this is a big fight for Eubanks too. If she loses to a short notice woman with less experience than her, like what kind of upside do you have? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of a fight like that. It could be possibly. So anyways, a good card coming up this weekend. Guys, we're about to hit that 90-minute mark. And yeah, man, it's always good having you guys on, man. It's always flows so good. And the comments is going crazy with some other wildness. And they could do whatever they want. It's all good. You guys take care of that. And yeah, man, tell us where we can find all your stuff, Ryan, and where we can follow you and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at @Galloway_. I think it's on the screen, or it was a second ago. If it's not, I do a podcast to preview every event on a Monday on the LowKickMMA YouTube channel. You can check that out. Otherwise, yeah, just follow my Twitter. You can see everything I do. Thanks for having me, John.
Of course, man. Of course. And Spencer, the OG, where can we find your stuff?
Same thing on Twitter at Spencer Kyte, SpencerKyte. John will put it up because he's wonderful at that. You mentioned the Keyboard Kimura newsletter, spencerkyte.substack.com. Check that out. I tend to write it most days. I give myself 1 or 2 days off during the week, depending on what the other deadlines are. UFC.com and recently started writing for OSDB Sports, doing some MMA preview stuff, some MMA feature interviews. Got one coming out next week, early next week with Terrence McKinney, just talking about his journey and talked to a couple of his coaches and Mike Chiesa as well, who's from that Spokane area, about the potential of T-Rex, who, you know, rocketed out of the gate with a 7-second knockout. So that'll be out Monday.
For sure. Now, for me, you can catch me at JHKMMA on everything. Instagram, Twitters, the Facebooks, the everything, MySpace, whatever you want to go to. All my interviews, you could go to Kumite TV or you just search my name, Hyon Ko, on YouTube. You go to that, subscribe to that. I'm doing interviews for Miami News, SCMP right here, Sports Kita, Fight Night Picks. I'm in talks with another entity to do interviews for them, so look out for that. And who else am I missing here? Oh, Fanatics. Go to Fanatics, go download the app, go to Fan Addicts, join the group, make your picks, get involved in the community. Other than that, man, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll be back next week with another pair of heavy hitters. That's my favorite saying now, heavy hitters. I'll see you guys. Head in. Bye.